Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm an Arizona realtor and have built a multi-million dollar business with my husband by using what I learned from being a teacher. Now I'm bringing the steps I took to leave the classroom and become a top producing agent and team owner. So grab your coffee, cherry vanilla Coke, or maybe even a cocktail, and let's begin. Well, hello there, guys. It is so nice to be with you again. I currently have a 90-pound dog at my feet because we're experiencing a rainy day in Arizona and he's a chicken. Every time there is thunder or, God forbid, lightning, he tries to literally jump into my lap. But okay, enough about me. How are you? I hope you're enjoying a relaxing day, or if you happen to not be having a relaxing day and you're finding yourself super busy, I hope you can enjoy just a little bit of relaxation during our time together. So, I'm really excited about today's episode because it came about from a listener who reached out to me. Yeah. So, a couple of weeks ago, I had a listener reach out to me on my social media and ask me about the difference between working with buyers versus sellers. She had just gotten started. She was super hungry to learn as much as she could. Guys, if you ever have questions about real estate, please know you can reach out to me. That's why I give you my Instagram handle, and I'll totally get back to you. And you never know when your question might actually turn into an actual podcast episode, like right here. All right, so let's get started. Whether you are a newly licensed agent or an experienced one, I think we will all agree with the following statements. Buyers and sellers are different. And with just cause, guys. This is not unlike how teaching in one school could be totally different than teaching in another school. The expectations are just different. So let me tell you a little bit about my educational career. So my first year in the classroom, I taught at a Title I school in a very urban part of the city. It had lots of low income, many at-risk students, single parent households, and a very diverse population. There were actually 23 languages spoken at that school. It was amazing. So anyhow, as I navigated my first year of teaching, I found what my students needed most was acceptance. They needed kindness. They also deserved and needed my very, very best teaching. These were students who didn't have the luxury of a vast library in their home. They didn't have access to tutors when they needed extra help. They didn't experience the life the same way that I did when I was growing up. So, what was my goal? Well, it was the same as every year after that I taught, to end the year with students who knew it was okay to fail. It was okay to not know everything. And I really wanted them to understand that as their teacher, I would move heaven and earth to ensure that they were not only doing well, but that they were prepared for the next grade level. Guys, I taught at that school for 3 years before I moved to a different school. So let's talk about my second and third school. And the reason why I'm putting them together is because they're very similar. Now, both of these schools were more in suburban areas of the city. They were not Title I schools, but they still did share some low income families. There were still some single parent households, and there were still some students who needed more than what the average teacher could deliver. My delivery was the exact same. My goals were the very exact same. The only thing that changed was my location. So now let's go on to the last school that I taught at. This was the fourth and final school until I decided to hang my teacher's license and say, you know what? I want to try something new and exciting. So anyhow, this fourth school was in a very desirable location just outside of the city. Homes in the area were priced high. Students came to school in clean clothes. They were well fed. They came in nicer cars than what my house was, guys. Like, seriously. But they were ready to learn. Now, most of these students were already working above grade level. My delivery, and my goals, though, were still the exact same. I wanted to teach students that it was okay to fail. Mistakes were a necessary ingredient to success. And it didn't matter how smart you were if you didn't apply your smarts for the betterment of others and your own community. So, why did I tell you about these schools? Well, because this is what it's like when you work with a seller versus a buyer. Now, teachers, if you have been in multiple schools, you would probably agree with this statement. All schools are different. All students are different, right? Nobody's going to be the same, okay? Your goal as a realtor should not be just to make money. Okay. If this is the only reason you're going into the industry, you're not going to last long. I know that seems harsh, but you're not. It's no different than if you only go into teaching to have summers and holidays off. Guys, without a passion for what you do every single day, it's going to seem like a chore and you're going to give up. So, what is it like to work with a buyer? Well, it could depend on what the market looks like, but I compare working with buyers like working and teaching in my first three schools. I was needed because they couldn't reach their goals without me. I was a necessity. And guys, I was damn good at my job. I was tentative to each and every one of my students' needs and their family needs. I ensured success academically, and my parents were always pleased and always appreciative to my efforts. Now, I didn't do it for their appreciation. I did it because I knew that that's what that student needed. I always demonstrated my knowledge. I always supported my family the way that all teachers do, right? Buyers right now, especially in this market, guys, they're frustrated. They're scared. They're overwhelmed. Buying a home right now can take a while. They get outbid. They get overlooked because there's so many buyers trying to buy the exact same home. So when you land your buyers a home that meets their needs, that matches their price and makes their dreams come true, guys, they're thankful. They appreciate you. They answer your calls because they know this happened because of your hard work. There is no greater feeling than handing a buyer's keys to them that day. So that's what it's like working with a buyer. Now, what's it like working with a seller? Well, this is more similar to the last school where I taught. The students at my school were already learning. They didn't have specific needs that I needed to meet. They could have been taught by seriously a cat and glasses, and they would have still reached their goals. This is what it's like to work with a seller. A seller could feel that they don't need you, that you're replaceable, that you're overrated, that you're overpriced. Guys, that may seem hard to swallow, but what you have to understand and remember is that a seller is writing a check at the end of this transaction, a check with far larger amount and far more zeros than any other check they've ever written. Now, that doesn't mean it can't bring the same joy, but you have to remember the emotion that is involved when selling a house. Understanding and being empathetic to their situation is an absolute necessity when you are representing a seller. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. I want you to think back. Think back to your own home buying and selling experiences. What did you feel like when you bought your first home? I'm just going to pause a second so that way you can actually picture it in your head, right? Pure excitement, right? That's what I would expect. I remember my very first purchase. Um, I had just turned 22. Yeah, I was 22. I was just out of college. I was getting ready to get married. This was the first home that I had ever purchased. It was the first time I had ever even left my parents' house. Okay. Yes, I was one of those kids that didn't stay in a dorm. I went to school in my own city. So this was the very first time I had ever owned anything. I was newly married. Guys, I spent so much time on Pinterest that it should have been a job. Okay. Anyhow, I was so excited about decorating. I was planning a nursery. It was exciting, right? Would you agree? Buying a home is exciting because everything's going to be new and you get to create and you get to plan and it's fun, right? So what about when you sold a home? Yeah. No matter how excited about starting a new chapter we are also attached to the home that we're selling. Maybe your children were brought home from the hospital to that home you're selling. Maybe it's the only home you've ever known. Are there memories in that home? I'm going to tell you a little bit. So, I have actually purchased and moved 14 times. And I'm not that old, guys. And I didn't even move the first time till I was like 22. Okay. So, like, hello, lots of moving. But I still remember the hardest move that I ever made, and it was from my childhood home. So I come from Kentucky, a place where your parents buy a house and they stay there until all the kids graduate from college, and then they might downsize or they may keep the house just so that way they have room for grandkids. Okay. But basically, my family home was an old country house. It was small, nothing huge, one story. It had three bedrooms. There was one bathroom. We actually didn't even have air conditioner when I was little. We had what was called an attic fan. So we would open the windows and turn the attic fan on, and that's how we would cool the house. There was 5 acres of land attached to it. But I remember being in school and being jealous of all my friends' houses because they had really beautiful houses. You know, not that my house wasn't beautiful, but they were big and they were in subdivisions, and I was on a farm. But when we actually moved from that farmhouse, I cried. It was the only home I had ever known. I remember teaching my nephew. So I actually became an aunt when I was like 10. And so my nephew's more like a little brother than he is a nephew. He's never called me Aunt Jackie. But anyhow, that's a different story. But anyhow, I can remember teaching him how to ride a two-wheel bike right out front the front door. I remember sledding down the big hill when we would have snow. I remember walking up the gravel driveway to visit neighbors and go fishing. I could tell you stories after stories about those neighbors. Doing my part in the garden. Oh, yeah, I always had a part. Every season, my job was to walk on the corn seeds. Evidently, my feet would push the seeds down just enough that they would blossom and we would have corn for the whole season. I remember snapping beans. Yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, we should be friends. Anyhow, I remember doing that on the back porch and so many more memories. Sellers will be emotionally attached to their home, no matter how much money they're making on that sale. Don't tell me, oh, well, they're making $200,000 on their sale. That doesn't take away the loss of the memories. So one suggestion I will give you is when you are working with buyers and sellers, I guess, look past the commission. Don't even think about the commission. Look at the client and truly think about their feelings. It is so easy to just think of the tasks that we have to do, to think of the deadlines, to know exactly who and what we need to do and who we need to talk to ensure a successful close, right? But if you're only thinking about your commission, you're missing the big picture. And when you work with a seller, you're going to have a bad experience. Working with buyers, I've never had a bad buyer. All of my buyers' experiences have been so amazing. I love watching their kids running down the hall and fighting over what room is going to be theirs. I love watching the wife stand in the kitchen like she's like, looking at her palace. It's a great feeling. And handing them their keys, guys, there's nothing better. But what you have to also remember is a seller, they have to remove everything off the walls. They're going to have to go through that door and erase all of the little markings of where their kids were at what height. It's emotional. And if you don't remember the emotionalness of selling a home, you're going to have a bad experience when you represent a seller. So that's my suggestion. Guys, if you're thinking about a switch to real estate, I would love to support you and bring you in our collective group of agents. We have partners in every single state, guys, every single state. And through our coaching and our training and our support, they're leaving the classroom and going full time. Or maybe you don't want to leave the classroom. That's fine. I would love to help you supplement your income and save for your future. Let's connect and chat on ways that I can help you reach those goals. Guys, going into real estate can seem scary. Starting something new can be a challenge. But you, yes, you teachers keep the attention of 24 to 32 children a day for 7 hours. You maintain peace in a sea of hormones and body odor. You can do this, and I'm here to help. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Jackie Durbin AZ and at Teachers in Real Estate. Also, like, share, and rate this podcast. And if you need help or have state-specific questions, reach out to me, and I'll gladly help. People, meaning your clients, will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. Make them feel special. Make them feel heard. See you next time, guys.